So I'm going to let everybody in now.
Oh my God. It's just...
Keep calm.
Okay, can everybody hear okay? Just you can put a thumbs up, so we should be able to hear. Good, I like the thumbs, everyone's thumbs. Good. So I'm just checking that I've stopped screen sharing. Good.
I'm
Okay,
glad
so
to hear your faces.
we've got
Yes,
many faces.
hiding behind the portrait.
So it's nice to see everybody here tonight. Thank you for coming round two. Hopefully we won't have too many problems. Last time went quite well. So first of all, just welcome to everybody. It's kind of a quick one after the first experience, but we've got a bit of a bigger group this time. So we're going to try and keep to the pace. I want to stick to the hour, but I've got a bad feeling we will run over. So we might get a phone call from TED Talks saying we've gone over time. So we should be fine. So I'm just going to start screen sharing now, and hopefully you can see. So welcome to our second version of Fida Talks. And today we're going to be talking about the topic of the role of portraiture in fashion drawing. And I guess all the artists we have tonight are pretty well known within the industry of I guess portraiture. They're people. This is the first time I've met some of these people via Zoom. So we've never met each other before like this. So it's a good experience. So it's I guess it's a coming together. A lot of people have been talking about community, which is quite nice. A lot of us have been speaking via text or WhatsApp or whatever, or via Instagram. So it's quite nice to put a face to a name now. So tonight we've got Nadia Coolrista, Chris Gambrell, Natalia Sanabria, Melanie De Jong, and Alena Yoytenokl. You can correct me, Elena, later.
No, Alena Yoytenokl.
Yeah, see, there's no chance I'm going to remember that. Not for tonight. Maybe
No,
the
it's
next
fine.
time. I'll keep trying. So, I guess all these artists that I've picked this evening have been artists. I guess I've had a conversation with, or a dialogue through Instagram, or either memberships, or they've been part of the awards, or recently published in the book. And there've been people that have different styles, different techniques, have sort of evoked different feelings to me. And one thing I really wanted was this breadth of technique, ways of working. And we've got a bit of digital in there. We've got some analog. We've got quite a mixed medium, almost old school with Chris's work. So it's quite nice to see this sort of mixed context of people. So you get a wide range of sort of people that are drawing the face, portraiture, and also kind of some people blending academic drawing with more freehand and experimental. So first of all, I'd like to introduce Nadia. Nadia, I came across her work, or she came across us as well, probably about 7-8 months ago. And I guess when I first saw Nadia's work, she was doing pretty well on Instagram. She had an interesting following. Her work she's really playful. She's really hardworking. And I think I mentioned this to her many times, is I've never seen a person work as hard as her. I guess one thing about a lot of illustrators or artists that are on here, you all work really hard. And I can see that from the amount of volume of images that go up or you post. And I think there isn't an illustrator probably within the context of today's meeting, or anyone that I've spoken to, who doesn't work hard. I think anybody who works as a creative is a hard worker. And I think that's a really important part of our discussion as well tonight, is this sheer volume of working and learning through creating. And I think that's quite an interesting topic, and it might evoke a few questions later. So what I'd like to do is first ask Nadia to explain the two pieces that she's selected, and an inspirational image, which is a landscape. Hopefully I've put the right one up, but I had a good look at the artist's work, and I can see how you've triggered off this piece. So if you'd like to explain these pieces to us, Nadia, and the artist and the inspirational image that you selected as well.
Yes. Can I start speaking?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay. I'd like to, my name is Nadia Coolrista. Coolrista is my nickname, so you can freely use it anyway. I would like to start with my inspirational picture. It's a landscape of an artist whose name is Per Adolfsson. And I found this work on Instagram and was pretty much impressed by the pencil, by the use of pencil. When I look at my work, and I usually think that the pencil is not enough, it's not appreciative in the artist world enough. So I always had this doubt that just drawing with the pencil is probably not enough. And this picture of this landscape drawing made me feel that, oh, it can be really gorgeous and nice and really appreciated by other people and artists and other art lovers. Well, and then I got inspired, and just I thought I could do that, and I got back to pencils and start drawing with them. Just freehand drawing, not tracing method, nothing that I used to do. And I thought, as a true artist, I need to do these things. Like free hand drawing is important to me right now. So this portrait represents me as a artist, and I love pencils because it's pretty. I can use a pencil just like sculpture can build a shape. To me, drawing a portrait is kind of like sculpting the face. I appreciate the complex form. I always loved the 3D shape and sculpture. So when I draw face, I feel like I'm kind of a sculpture that make 3D form on a 2D surface, which is kind of amazing to me. That's it about the picture I've chosen. And I also try to, speaking about digital drawing, you can see the second example of my work. I love digital drawing because it gives you a lot of freedom in the sense of different tools. You can try oil painting, for example, that you would never try it in a traditional way. So I try to use some mediums that I would never use in, or probably by now I can't use them in my art. So yeah, it's important to me to experiment with that too. Yeah.
I guess just to sort of butt in there is what I saw quite interesting in your digital work is you're trying to bring across a lot of your traditional knowledge to your digital space. And when I started out many years ago, and Photoshop had sort of started, is that I was always trying to grapple with how do you get Photoshop to look like an analog piece of work. rather than it being like Illustrator, a very vectory sort of image. And I think with Procreate and the new tools that have come through on the Apple iPad, is this really enabling people to almost keep that texture. And the brushes, you know, the brushes weren't as good. The brushes are really, and it's amazing. I'm hearing lots of people saying, wow, since you've shared the brushes with me, my drawings improved tenfold. And a lot of people using digital tools now are really sort of, I guess, grappling with how do you keep it analog if you're an analog sort of artist. And it would be interesting to hear what Chris has to say soon when we talk about his work. But with your work, is you've done this nice sort of connection and this sort of synergy between the bigger picture being this analog piece and then this sort of much more digital piece. And I guess they're kind of a little bit different, but I've seen other works where they really have a sort of a good crossover. And a recent post someone had put up where we have these sort of hyper real images, and it was one of the artists who I've been speaking to as well, who had a piece drawn and Procreate, which is like hyper real images, and people were being quite negative about it, saying, you know, this image is being traced and this image is being almost Photoshop retouched and then looking like the photograph again. And you know, if we think about Chuck Close, we think about portrait artists like that who do hyperrealism. Robert Longo, you know, there's lots of artists who do portraits that look real. And I think, you know, this is a skill in itself. And I think a lot of people are always being critical and willing to throw something at someone to say why it's so wrong, rather than, wow, how did you do that? And I think that's what's been amazing to me is when you look at a piece of art, whether it's digital or analog, is what is the process and decoding that process. That's all I do. Is so when I look at each and every one of who I've selected tonight's work, I'm always decoding what you do. And this was a big topic that we spoke at the Royal College, is about recoding and decoding your work and trying to rebuild it, take it apart, deconstruct it. And it was something that I've mentioned to you as well, is like, you know, you build up this sort of look and feel, and then you kind of start breaking it apart, like Picasso and various other artists, how they break the portrait down or simplify it. And what we've mentioned about illustrators is a lot of illustrators like Jason Brooks, who has a very fluid line, he almost breaks down the drawing to nothing. So it's so simple. And, you know, that's an art in itself. So I think these are big conversations that around illustrators, you know, we spoke about illustrators being under sort of appreciated, but their ability that we go through really fast iterations to learn what line will work, what line doesn't work. And if you look at an illustrator's piece of paper, they have learned to almost decode how to draw and erase before they even draw. And that's the pure skill, which I guess a lot of people don't understand. And we understand because we've done the journey, the pain thresholds of learning how to draw. So, you know, Nadia, I thought these were fascinating pieces, and every time, you know, it's always amazing to see what you do, where you're going to go next, and you know, the new struggles and with these sorts of drawings. And I saw this, and I mentioned this drawing because I said to you about Francis Bacon always spoke about the mouth being the hardest part to sort of conquer. And in this, you can see the mouth is the area which has the most focus from the portrait. And within portraits, some people focus on the eyes, you know, some people focus on the lips or the nose, because the nose is quite a hard form to capture. And then the ears, I always found the ears quite fascinating to draw because they're like hands or they're like fingers. So, you know, I guess an amazing series of pieces. And, you know, I guess if there's anything you have extra to say, Nadia, before we move on, what's anything extra you'd like to add in to these pieces?
I personally, you just said that, yeah, the skill, the realistic, very hyper realistic illustration that are made in digitally. It's amazing how they do it. In the process, it takes a lot of time to gain that skill. I really appreciate it. But to me personally, right now, I think that I am stepping away a little. I want to step away from the realistic way of drawing and make my illustrations more loose and kind of, not abstract, but easier, not very detailed like I used to draw.
Yeah, good. Okay, so thank you, Nadia. So next,
Thank you so much.
next we're going to move on to Chris. I love the way Chris, whenever I ask Chris to send me something about himself, he writes the most simplest responses, which is a visual artist with an obsession for carving form and texture from the surface. And what I guess I find fascinating about Chris is this lack of wanting to glow about what he does and what his work sort of says. And I guess I've come across Chris's work. It's great to see. I think you're a Bristolian, but it's good to see this sort of raw sort of drawing. I went to the GAR exhibition at the Royal Academy, and whenever I see anything to do with pastels or chalks, always has that sort of feeling of Degas. And I think I'd be interested to see, and it's good to see your artists who you've picked as well, who I love as well. So if you'd like to just explain the works and your inspirational image, that'd be great.
Okay, yeah, thanks very much, Patrick, and thanks very much for getting me involved as well. It's a real honor to take part in this. So I guess it's been quite a journey for me. I took 12 years out, didn't do any drawing at all. Started a family, moved around, lived in Europe, lived in Asia. So I after 12 years of not drawing, I came back to it in 2016. I came back and I used to do a lot of drawing, just going out on the streets, doing a lot of drawing, people in cafes and people moving from place to place, hence the fashion thing, because it was like drawing a parade of people wearing clothes, different shapes, and it was very quick as well. You see the way that clothes move, and that's what kind of led to it. So I was basically doing a lot of drawing, coming back using Photoshop to scan and then color things to try and sort of retain the raw sort of elements that I liked from drawing in a sketchbook. But returning to it after 12 years of not drawing and then trying to use Photoshop was just a no-go. I wanted to be able to get my fingers dirty, to play with paint, to play with pastel, to play with just everything really. Ink pads I was using, just a lot of multimedia stuff, and it was instant and it was immediate and it was just exciting, and it beat spending 10 minutes waiting for a brush stroke to appear on the screen, which was the place that my laptop was at. So that was a good thing for me, and I came back in and I felt like I was really relearning to sort of reacquaint myself with different types of media. So the sort of evolution, I was using a lot of pencil crayons, but I was always quite comfortable with soft pastels, but as I've gone along in the 4 years, sort of since starting drawing again, I think I've come back to being probably most comfortable with soft pastel. I have lots of sort of indecisions about, whether you should be comfortable with something or whether you should be slightly, I think it's a good position to be slightly uncomfortable with things, sort of working in that zone of things that kind of work but don't quite work. So I've tried to challenge myself quite a lot. I think I've chosen these pieces that you see in front of you this evening, just because they are, I feel like they're stripped down, and occasionally I chuck out a pearl of some things that, you know, I've been, that have been sort of coming for a little while. I've been experimenting and, you know, is it too much? Am I putting down too much on the, am I giving too much information? Am I not giving enough information? You know, does the harmony of colors work? Things like that. So, and I feel like these two pieces, hang on a second. Yeah, these two pieces really have the right balance of simplicity and enough information for you to be able to kind of piece together a feel, a mood. That's probably one of the most important things, is conveying a mood for me, you know, through color, through form, through mark making, through the textures, the surface, you know, the way that you engage with the surface. So yeah, I often talk about my work as being a little bit like a short story. I appreciate short stories. I like novels, but I appreciate short stories because they give the audience the credit of being able to fill in some of those details for themselves. So where I leave, you know, things that some might see undone, or you know, I don't color things to the extent that they could be. I like to think that people can sort of continue that and paste in some of their own reference to complete, you know, the feel of these, so that it, you know, takes on a different feel for any viewer. So yeah, that's why I've chosen these.
And the inspirational image.
Yeah. Yoytenokler's stuff is just fantastic. I could look at it for hours. I mean, all of his pieces, and it's interesting because as much as they inspire me and the way they're constructed and just the mood, the feeling, you know, I've seen the way that he constructed work, and it was painstaking. I mean, he took you know, weeks, months to wait for exactly the right light, you know, on a certain day to achieve exactly the right light. And he would get, you know, measuring devices to try and make sure that everything was perfectly in scale. So he painstakingly worked on these pieces. But you know, I feel like my work is possibly the other end of the spectrum, where I feel like it's always the quicker stuff that works, the more instinctive stuff that works. And my hope is always that I can try and train myself through lots of drawing, lots of observation, to be able to instinctively know where to put marks down that work. So yeah, it's like sort of contradiction to my own method of working, but inspiring all the same.
Yeah. Well, in your mix of what you were saying is grappling with this medium, and one thing I think artists love is they love the pain of something. So if it's not working, they love to strive through it, or if it becomes too easy, then there's something wrong. And sometimes the most enjoyable work, you go, there's something not right here, this is too simple, and then people love it, and you're like, well, this can't be right because I'm not used to having the fun of it. You feel there's a struggle and then there's an end, you feel relief. It's like a battle, and I think that feeling tends to be better than when it's really simple and you kind of bash it out and you go, oh, then it's done, and you go, well, that there was no fight there. And I think a lot of art, like with Yoytenokl especially, who he battled, you can tell through measured drawing, academic drawing, that if you look at his figurative work, the pain, even drawing through, if you look at him drawing pears and still life, the pain that you can see drawing these objects, I you know, I can see it. And when I see your work, and you know, we look at it coming up on Instagram, which is a great sort of cataloguing of sketchbook work in progress, having a bit of time painting, and it, you know, if someone's looking at you, you can see that they'll go, that one wasn't as good, or, and I wonder how you felt about that. But there's the conversation isn't open as much, but it's a case of you can see, he rendered that, and I guess Instagram, the beauty of Instagram is the sort of instantness of it, but the bit it misses is why you did that, or why you selected that, or how did you feel about, like, you're talking about mood, you're talking about feeling. And I remember you saying something to me, or I wrote it down, was about you're not a narrative artist, even though you mentioned that your picture's telling a story. And I think it's a sort of a visual story of color, mark making, and that sort of image making, which I find quite interesting. Like, there was an interesting show with Jenny Saville, and she has enriched her drawings with colors, and you're starting to see this sort of saturation of colors coming through in work, and people shying away from being very British, grey, downtrodden colors. And you're kind of, you know, yours could be Beverly Hills because the colors are nice, they're vibrant, you know, and I guess it could be a sort of a celebration of feeling. This could be a reflection of your mood rather than the very, you know, Britishness of color, where we like to have moody and muddy colors. Like, you're using colors direct, and I think that's quite, you know, that you can see with them sort of blues reminiscent of sort of Yves Klein, and you've got all, you know, there's a history of blue, and then the yellows, and, you know, yellows with Van Gogh and people like that. So I get, sometimes you probably underestimate what you're doing, and it's only the voyeurs who are really taking in what you're doing. And I guess that's your growth in Instagram as well, is a sort of a celebration of what you do, which is quite nice.
Instagram's really interesting. I mean, you can share quite a lot, but you can't share everything, because you're telling the story far and wide, and it's, you know, it is really interesting as to where people cut off that communication of, you know, where they feel comfortable.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant, Chris. Thank you. So next, let's see. So Natalia, I came across Natalia's work, and it was interesting, your selection of images, Natalia, because I looked through your sort of catalogue of work, and, you know, you've got a whole array of images. And I guess as an illustrator, you know, when I looked at these, I thought they're almost quite happy, quite playful, almost a bit sort of kitschy in a little bit of a good way. And I thought, you know, it's interesting to see why you picked these as a sort of portrait pieces. And that was my most interesting part for me, is this, what you selected, like why people selected these images. So let's hear from you the selection that you gave tonight, Natalia.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Yeah? Okay, well, thank you for inviting me. And first, the image I choose was this Toulouse-Lautrec scene in a cabaret. And what I really like about him is that he paints like almost like a drawing, I see the way he uses painting, it's almost like colored pencils, like a sketch. And I love how he froze in time these moments, and the compositions, the colors. Like he was a genius for me, like almost an illustrator, but he was a painter. And now the images I choose, it's first, I don't know why I'm drawing from last year. I started drawing like happy people. I don't know if it's because everything that's going on in the world. Like I tend to now unconsciously to draw happy people. And I really like to draw the human form, but human figure, but I put a special attention into the face. So my challenge right now is to make the people who I like to draw, the faces that I like to focus on, to draw them in like an environment, to place them in a room, or to interact with other people. So yeah, I like to draw the human form. I like to draw fashion, but I think that the main focus of my drawings is the face, the expressions. I used to draw just like very serious, like powerful models, but now I like to see the challenge of how to draw a smile or people talking. And also, it's very difficult for me to draw flowers and nature, so I'm trying to get out of my comfort zone. So this is what I'm doing right now, and I like it. My happy drawings.
Well, it's good to see. Well, it's nice to hear the sort of backstory, and one of the hardest parts to conquer as an artist, even photographers, is anyone who smiles. You know, the the need or want to draw anyone who smiles, to draw teeth, the experience, you know, to draw an open mouth is probably one of the hardest parts to do and get right. And you know, to take on the smiling mouth, I think William de Kooning, he used the smiling mouth in a lot of his women paintings. And you know, it's interesting to see these sorts of very playful, with the David Bowie image. I thought it was so fun, and it's so sort of interesting, and a real sort of hybrid of all your work rolled into one. It's like I'm making a cake, and you've kind of cooked with all of your ingredients of a portrait, color, a little bit of narrative, a bit kitschy story, and then these sort of very happy-go-lucky sort of people. And it you know, you're taking, like we were talking to Chris there, is taking on the struggles. What I don't like drawing plants, I don't like drawing this, and taking it on. And I think that's that is what we love. I think is the fight of a drawing, and you know, with this is to take on longer pieces as well. And I think that's a harder thing, is to take on pieces that might take a week or 2 weeks, like we were saying with Yoytenokl. And I think, like with Toulouse-Lautrec, and one of the things in one of the first competitions we did with the Fida Awards was documentary, because I'm a fan. I love Richard Haynes, and I love sort of illustrators who are documenting sort of moments, and we don't see enough of that. And I think there's a real need for people, especially illustrators, is to capture moments, whether it's a portrait, whether it's behind the scenes. And I think with a lot of us is capturing the moment, like a snapshot, like they say with photographers like Robert Dosnier or someone like that, who captures like someone jumping over a puddle. And I think that's what illustrators have a real skill to do, is capture the essence and the moment. And I think this is what you're trying to do as well, is capture a lot of stories in there and a lot of ingredients. So someone could spend a bit of time looking in the background, looking at the sort of the macaroons, and then looking at the hat. And there could be lots of symbolism. So you could then think of Velasquez, you could think of all of these artists who enriched drawings with little narratives. What does this mean? Is it evocative? What does this symbol mean? And bring it, you know, the flower, is it to do with her sexuality? You know, there's lots of stories behind symbolism. And I think that's and people are then decoding your drawing. And maybe you didn't see this, but this is what I'm seeing as I look at it. And the more I look at it, and the more I'm trying to understand it. And I think that's quite a sort of a fascinating part of what you do. And you know, if anyone looks at your work, you've got a whole diverse selection of pieces. So it was interesting for me to see what you were going to pick, different to what I was picking. I was going for much different ones, but it's great. This is the part, is you make the decisions, and I think that's what's quite nice. So I don't know if you've got anything else to say that you wanted to point out, but
no, aside that, also I have all these old pictures that I like to give them like a second life by drawing them, like in the David Bowie picture. And I choose them as portraits because I really put special attention into get all the face right, and like it has to be perfect for me. So these are the images that I choose.
and I think that's quite an interesting, because someone made a comment on Instagram or something about artists copying, and I think you've just nailed it. Is we are giving a second life to the image, and you know,
Yeah.
we think about John Berger reproduction and things like that, and I think it's that's the perfect scenario, is we are giving a second life to the image. So as we see a photograph, we spend hours, and I could ask all the artists here, going through hundreds and hundreds of images with good compositions, with good lighting, and you're almost cataloging images and then giving them another life. And I think that's the perfect sort of analogy of what we are doing. And it isn't copying, it's giving another life to the image. So perfect on that one. Right, so next we have Melanie De Jong, and Melanie has, I guess I saw her work quite early on, and I found her work quite fascinating. I look at her work a lot, and it, again, the word grapple comes up quite a lot with me, and this sort of, because there's lots of artists out there who draw big eyes or draw oversized images or oversized objects, and I think this was one of the only artists who I really liked, who use maybe bigger proportions in certain areas that I don't think is too comical or cartoony. And the one word I hate is cartoon or caricature, and because we're not caricature artists, and I hope that, well, I don't know if any of you call yourself a caricature artist, but usually to me, if you're drawing a serious portrait, a caricature makes me nearly cringe or cry. So when I see Menelie's work, there's lots and sorts of little intricacies that go in. The detail is so hyper detailed on the hair, but it isn't hyper realism. And I think, and really, like Chris was saying earlier about the mood, you can tell, like with the large image, she almost looks, something's going to happen. It's telling a story. It's almost like a film, sort of film, a filmic moment. It's very cinematic, almost waiting for something to happen, or she's nervous. So, and I think that is with Melanie's work, this is what really attracted me to asking her to speak. So, Melanie, I think I'll pass over to you, and you can share this information behind these images and your selected image as well.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Yeah, thank you for the explanation about my art. Yeah, I have a love for old fashion, fashion from the past, and I like old illustrators from the past because they are telling a story, and I like to tell stories also with my work, and I love to put some emotion to it, expression, and a little bit of drama.
And who was the artist you picked? You've got
It's Georges Barbier,
yeah,
from France, and he was a fashion illustrator for the fashion magazines from the past, like Vogue and Harper's Bazaar. So I loved his work when I was little, and that was the reason I wanted to become an illustrator, because it's like he tells a lot of stories with his images, and it's theatrical. I don't know what to say anymore.
and the big image, where did you get the inspiration for the big image?
It's Iris van Herpen. She's a Dutch fashion designer. She mostly does haute couture, and I love her work because when I was in fashion school, I saw one of her dresses with leather, and I was fascinated by the detailing of the work, the craft, and also the 3D dimensional kind of thing. And also she uses like models with a kind of look that inspires me to paint them, because it's dramatic, melancholic, and yeah, I don't know.
No,
There's a lot of movement in her fabrics, so maybe that's why I choose a lot of her work.
and I guess, you know, because when we look at your work and there's this, it's nice for you to mention the craft, the detail, and sort of you trying to find someone who you can associate with to then
Yeah.
draw. And I think that's like when you look back to your inspirational images, you find images that you love. And and I don't know if everybody who isn't an illustrator or an artist or a creative here is that, you know, we spend ages trying to find people that you can associate to then draw or build up a new vocabulary with. And I think that's what you do is, you know, is you're looking at designers and going, these are designers that I really like, and I like their mood, and I like their atmosphere, and I love what they represent. And I feel like I can give them that second life, as we say, this new second life of a new journey. And I know also with the other one is the Dior one in the top corner.
Yeah.
Which is the one I always pick because I love this one, and I think it's just
Thank you.
a great one. And I don't know if you want to explain anything behind that or any ideas behind it or thoughts.
I like Dior because Dior is Maria Chiri. She is using a lot of things from the past also, and it's a Pierrot, and it's a kind of emotion in the that the model has that moved me, and but also it's not kind of it's not only the model, it's also the hats he wears. I also like a lot of milliners who designers use, and the reason I draw things is because I want to show not only the model, I want to show the beautiful things they use to express their collections on stage, and the hat and the veil and and it's the whole look I like, and that is why I choose this one.
I think that's what is, because a lot of your work has a lot of miniature sort of headpieces. So I see a lot of that and this sort of appreciation for sort of headpieces. And Audrey Schlitt, who I've been working with, doing parts with, she worked for a few companies and she focused a lot on headpieces. And I think there's a real, I guess, an understanding and this sort of maybe these sort of disguising or these sort of masks or these headpieces, you know, you could then break it into people that use masks, again, Picasso and people like that, who sort of disguised these heads. And that's sort of, it's another layer. And now we're wearing masks, obviously, which is quite funny. And then there's more visors and other stuff. So it'd be interesting to see the collections coming through. But, you know, Melanie, I think fascinating and fantastic work. And I know
Can I say?
Yes, go on.
Can I
Yes.
say something? The reason why I drew things and put it online was that I appreciate how the designers make clothes, but also shoes, bags, hats, and on the runway they have a few moments of time to show their pieces, and that's why I choose sometimes the objects like the hats or the nail art that Iris van Herpen used, to show people that it's not only clothes but it's the whole package.
Yeah.
And there's so much to draw but no much time, so
Yeah, I guess that's another part is this sort of a new form of documenting and appreciating what the designers do. And it's through the illustrator's eyes rather than either a photograph's eyes, like photographer, or a critic's eyes. It's someone who's appreciating and re-establishing a new narrative from it. And I think that's what you're sort of saying and getting across, which is, I guess, another, this sort of second life concept. I
Yeah.
really like that. And there's this, we're talking about avatars and all this to come. Our second life, illustrators are given a second life to image making. And I think that's quite a fascinating part. Brilliant. Thank you, Melanie.
You're
So
welcome.
next, Alena, you can say your last name in a minute, but I guess with Alena's work it's come up a few times to me, and I've seen this sort of fascination of material. It's not too hyper real. She uses animations, very sort of playful, but this real sort of luscious. When I look at the work, it has this luscious feel to it, and almost like a tasty apple. And it's like an Adam and Eve story of wanting to eat your art. So that's quite a different experience that I have with when I look at your work. Is it really taps into the aesthetics of a new taste, like we using all of your senses, as an artist and as a person looking. Is I really want to get, you could lick it like Charlie in the Chocolate Factory. So I feel there's a real sensibility of getting taste. I can taste the drawings. And I think when I see your work, all the colors and all the images that you've put in there, there is a real story, and you've started to bring more stories into your images. Like if I look from when you first would, I go back through your history, and then now you're focusing on, very similar to Natalia, is starting to create a narrative behind. So the actual background is becoming integral to the portrait. And I think that's what's come across to me in the more recent work. So I can let you say your name, explain your image and your images as well.
Okay, sure. My name is Alena Yoytenokl. Is it correct? So glad to okay. I'm glad to see your real face, guys. Nice to meet you. So actually, I'm a new name in this profession. I started to work as a fashion illustrator last spring after the beginning of lockdown. Before that, I was a fashion designer and worked for Russian fashion brands. And science illustration was a new experience for me. I was looking for personal style, like all new illustrators of courses. It was an intuitive process for me. I was watching some successful artists and their works that had influence for my professional vision. At the same time, I was looking for interesting characters or faces, and was inspired by the new runway shows for my works. So now I found what style I need to work, and my straight sides are clear to me. I want to do more significant things. I want to have integrity, structure, and a fresh idea in my work. New composite solutions. I start to work with mood board from deeper research, examining the structure of idea. A portrait artwork is character design, first of all, and therefore I want to show the emotions convey the feeling. Depending on the choosing them, I finalize the portrait with details. I want some viewer to be able to look at the work for a long time and find something new every time. as you can see in the first image, it's Lanvin. It's a serial of digital illustration with digital animation, inspired by Lanvin collection Spring Summer 2021. So one day I opened Walk Runway app for to find the idea for a new project, saw a new short from Lanvin. And it's a great photography, a very beautiful collection. When I saw a close-up of this model, I was hooked by the character and emotional of this shot. I took it as a base for my new illustration. As you can see, and I did not make much change to the original source. I wanted to keep that look through these glazes, and wanted to keep this emotion. The main work was done with color reflection and details for background. All items are taken from the Lanvin collection also. Combination, it's a delicate blue. It turned out to be very soft and at the same time our finished work. And also Maskina. I love Maskina collections so much. They are very graphic and ideal for illustration. It is an incredible combination of texture and color. I love this game with shapes and volumes, and to show this illustration as a kind of change for the artist, demonstration of personal skills. I hope I did a good job. So,
and the illustrator you selected.
Sorry.
The illustrator you selected, your inspirational image.
Oh, it's Ignacy. Ignacy is one of my best. The style of his work is really close to me. His imagination and courage in his work is wonderful. I love all of his projects. I can look at them for a long time, and every time I find something new, I want to achieve this effect in my art at the same time.
Good. And I guess because Ignacy, we know with doing the Gucci campaigns and
Gucci campaigns.
We've seen this sort of progress.
Really excellent.
Yeah. And he's gone in to do animation. I don't know, he did an animation for Netflix. So we're seeing, I don't know how much you follow him, but he's doing a whole sort of realm of more commercial work. And he's also doing more sort of painting on tiles. Have you seen? So he's doing lots of painting. So he's keeping a sort of a mix of commercial work and personal work.
Yeah.
Balancing both, I guess, to survive, to be able to stay creative. And this was one of the things we discussed last time about surviving as an illustrator, is this balancing of the books, is how do you bring in enough money to cover your surviving to then enable you to be a creative. And I think that's been a big topic that's come up quite a lot. So thank you, Alena. So
thank you too.
We've got a few questions, but I'm going to try and find the chat. I had the chat here. So if anyone has any questions in the chat, I can see a few. I can see Victoria and I can see George, Cynthia, If anyone's got any questions, but I've got a few. So one of them, what interests you so much in the face and in the portrait? And I guess for Chris, it would be interesting to know, like, you focus quite heavily on the face. They seem to be your main area of play. This area. Why? Why not all the other areas, all the other parts, and still life? You're on mute, Chris. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Hello, hi. I'll try again. Yeah, it's kind of an extension of the body language, really, isn't it? I mean, everyone can relate to a face. It's from a very, very young age. You kind of stare out at people's faces around you when you're a baby. I mean, it's just, there's so much behind faces. There are so many stories. You always wonder what someone's thinking. So I've always been fascinated by faces. Loved people watching. And when I used to do some sculpting as well. I used to carve stone and make three-dimensional things, and I would make heads most of the time. So it's an extension of that. I think I always have.
It's a funny one, I guess. People that draw faces or portraits, and it's seen as, is it seen as art or is it not seen as art? Or because they kind of disconnect the National Portrait Gallery and the National Gallery, and they keep them kind of divided, and people who do portraits are seen as this separate little entity of image makers. And I've always done portraits. I've done portraits of Grace Coddington and Peter Marino and people like that. And I've always been fascinated in the face, because, to make it look like someone or to capture their essence is probably, I guess, one of the hardest tasks, because the rest of the body you feel like you could deal with, but the face, like I think Natalia was saying, focusing on the face was the main part, and then the rest of it seemed like an easy journey. And I know you, especially Natalia and Nadia as well. How, the face? Why the face for you, Nadia?
As I mentioned before, I think because I was always interested in 3D shape as a sculptor. When I draw, I feel like I'm sculpting the face. It's like interesting to build on this 2D surface, a 3D object. And the object as a face also has more to it. It has emotion and character, and that's as interesting to me to draw. So I'm excited always.
And sorry about that. And just because a few people are putting in here, like, time. How long? Because I know you're quite good at posting about time and journeys, and so it's quite handy if someone's watching you. You're a great documenter of your whole experience. Now I get the Nadia experience when I sort of see what you're doing, how long, and
how long time, yeah.
And which I think there's a question about time, but I think time's irrelevant. So I want to ignore that one, because you could draw it in 2 minutes, but does that make it worth more or worth less? It just means you can draw that image at that time in that speed. And I think there's we talk about Picasso quite a lot. There's a Picasso show on, and I think he did 46 paintings in 1 month. And and they're all selling for £65 million each. So I think it's a relevant time. So when we talk about time, it's only a question to ourselves rather than the audience. If someone says to you, well, how long did that take you? I bet it only took you a day. Why should I pay this? And these are big topics that come up. It's irrelevant if it took me 1 hour or 2 months. I've learned that skill. So I think time is not really an issue here. What I would like to know, Melanie, is process, because I know some of the process of some of you, but mentally, I think for you, I'd be fascinated to know about your process of how you work, because this sort of drawing the portrait. What do you do? Like, how does it start and go through the journey?
I mostly I'm looking for a picture that moves me. Like I'm looking for emotion in a picture, and yeah, I'm starting to sketch mostly with my phone, and then I can make it bigger or smaller, and then I'm starting to sketch, and mostly with music on to get in my bubble. And yeah, I'm looking for movement, but sometimes there's no movement in the picture, so I add some things to make it more yeah,
And
more expressional.
I guess it's fascinating to see like the process of us, how we're working using screens or phones, the amount of detail that you have. And if you're using an iPhone 4 or something small,
No, it's a big one.
it's a big one, but it's still amazing that you're using a phone, and I saw Richard Haynes come in a minute ago, and he's got this sort of screen, a phone, rip out of magazines, and and building up almost a surrounding area of comfortability to feel in your zone, like in your bubble. And I think
Yeah,
that's quite a nice part, is some days you're not in the zone. Like a marathon runner, you're going to do a run,
yeah.
you've got to get into your zone. And I think that the music, some people have silence.
Mhm.
I'd be interested to know from you, Natalia, is this sort of breaking free, because you have so many sort of techniques and styles and ways of working. How do you break free? Do you do life draw? Like, what do you do? Like, how do you mark make quickly, or do you do fast drawing in the morning, or what's your sort of breaking from tradition and working and experimenting to find new ways of image making?
Well, I think that my drawings are really academic, in the sense that I like to get the facial features really correctly. But going back to Toulouse-Lautrec and this artist that I really like to achieve this almost unfinished style in my illustrations. But so I like to mix the realistic with the almost unfinished parts in my drawings. And I really like to put a lot of color in my illustrations. And yeah, I don't know, like very pop. I'm very influenced by pop culture. So it's a mixture of academic and like traditional illustration, but more like a sketch, playful kind of drawings.
Do you ever have a moment of breakdown and say, enough, I'm now a new person, like changing the color of your hair and saying, right, I'm going to draw with my left hand, or stick it on a stick, or draw using my eyes, or something? I don't like this sort of, to find a new code, a new way of image making. Have you ever done that, or you've just kind of inch by inch just refined what you do?
I guess like I've become more refined, because I'm very detail oriented. But I think I'm going backwards, because I used to be very experimental. Like I first started with doing collage and painting with acrylics, watercolor, colored pencils. But I think I'm going backwards, and now I'm more refined. than I used to be, but I would like to go back to more experimental illustration and incorporate more collage, because I have a lot of magazines and a lot of stickers and tapes, and that makes the fashion illustration more playful, more experimental. So I think I should go back to that.
Good. Hopefully we'll see some new stuff coming.
Yeah.
I don't make you go too crazy. And I guess for Alena, is as a newcomer to the sort of drawing and illustration space, and you're sort of finding your new space within sort of the digital realm, how are you going to kind of create more of a struggle for yourself at your new battles that we might have encountered and given us more grey hair? But what's your next battles that you're going to do you think?
You know, I was never thinking about it. It's not my intention to bring something new. I just do what I like and do how I feel. And I completely trust this process. You know, I'm always a little surprised when I hear my works are very different from the works of other artists. For me, this is an intuitive process. I think personal style is born that way. I mean, when an artist does not set himself the task of making a revolution in art, and does what his artistic instincts tell him, I think this is the most honest and productive way. Maybe my style would change with the time, what is also will be a natural process. I don't know.
And I guess my next question was about the medium to struggle with and the part of the face. I'd be interested to know, from back to you, Chris, is what area do you find the hardest part of the face to conquer, that you really that's the bit I never get right, or find it the toughest?
I think probably ears don't receive as much affection or attention as they should for me. I think you'll find, if you look through my work, that ears are sort of stuck on blobs. I should probably spend more time analyzing ears and learning the anatomy of ears. I just don't find them that interesting, and they're on there for balance.
Yeah, and I think on one of the big images I noticed, like the ear, it was quite interesting how you sort of, the way you worked it. So this sort of shape and then a bit of a mark, which I think
yeah.
it stops you from drawing a sort of cartoon shape of an ear of this piece. So it kind of becomes like a form, which is more sculptural, which is quite nice. You're bringing some of the knowledge from sculpture into a flat form. And I think maybe that's a way of us justifying your ears.
Yes, I think you're very kind, Patrick. Thank you. And I will go with that.
And I guess for you, back to you, Nadia, is what part do you find the toughest?
Well, I think it's nose. The nose is the most difficult for me to draw. I like details, and I pay attention to every single part of the face, even the ears. I sculpt them right on the surface of the paper. And nose is difficult to position, to put in the right place in the face. To me, is the most difficult. Yeah. And maybe the chin and this transition, the chin and transition to the neck, that's the most kind of difficult to me.
I guess that's why some of you, I know, when I look at your work, draw a lot of profiles, because profiles, you don't have to worry about the nose that's coming forward. You can have the silhouette. The silhouette seems much more or
Yeah, silhouette.
three-quarter pose. Yes, it seems a bit more as I guess as an image maker. Let me just have a quick look at some of the so it's great to see everybody. Everybody's responding to each other with crediting images. I don't know if all you guys can see the chat, but there's so wide teeth smile is a bit of a taboo in fashion. I saw some people talking about crediting images. You know, we're giving a new life to them. So whether we credit them or not is another, I guess, the next big debate about crediting artists who we use as reference. I can see a good response and dialogue. As a sort of a last question, I've got here what says to your portrait is done. So when do you think, or when do you come to a moment of that's it, I'm finished? And I guess for you, Melanie, is, you know, when do you say, because you've got so many details in your portraits, is it you've run out of energy, or you need to have dinner, or what's the reason for the end?
Sometimes when I have no time left, I only do details I think is necessary. And I think I feel naturally when I have to stop. That's my thing. But sometimes I see my progress again from the pictures I made, and I think, oh, maybe it was better that I stopped earlier. So sometimes it's a struggle, but mostly I'm satisfied with the result.
It's a tough one, and I guess for you, Natalia, is,
Melanie.
you're over detailing some of these drawings, and you're very similar to Melanie, is these sort of very complex drawings. And when do you think you're finished as well, Natalia?
I think I do some part of my illustrations by hand, but I do another part on Photoshop. Like I move around the subject I'm drawing. I don't know, the figure or the flowers, or I put everything together as like a collage of digital and traditional illustration. So that gives me the chance to, if I did something wrong, like I can go back a little bit, or put some watercolor stains, or take some details, or I think it's I play a lot with my final illustrations. Sometimes I post it, but then I say like, oh, I should have left this out, or I should have put this in the illustration. So I think I'm never satisfied, but Photoshop helps me to move around things and yeah, to decide when the illustration is finished.
And Chris, because you're saying you leave quite a lot out. When do you decide? Like, what's that moment of, right, I want to leave that bit finished, and do you come back to it maybe a month later, or it's done, next one? How's the system?
Yeah, sometimes I do come back to things, but it really is so different. It depends. You might be 5 minutes into a picture and just think, yeah, it's got the structure, it's got all the, you know, the character, the emotion that it needs. Or you might be working on something for a long time, it's not working, you feel like it's not working, then you turn a corner, you know, and that could be an hour, it could be 2 hours on. So it really depends. It really depends. And yeah, I will revisit things sometimes. You know, sometimes there'll be some preliminary drawings as well, trying to get structure right. And more often than not, the preliminary drawings are better than the finished image. So yeah, it's complicated.
It is very. And when I used to do a lot of portraits, I used to have a smaller studio, and my paintings used to be in my room, and I didn't sleep because I'd constantly be waking up. That I can't go to bed until that bit's fixed, or and then I had the habit of going to the studio and then fixing it because I couldn't sleep because it would make me depressed. and I'm pretty sure, because I've messaged Nadia a few times, and she's up at 3 o'clock. And I know, like, Richard's on here and a few others are on here, and they message you back, and I'm only messaging them in the morning, and they're still up. So I don't know whether they're still having a wrestling match with their portraits or their drawings. So it seems like a never-ending story of making amends or changes. So anyway, because I want to keep this to as near an hour as possible, and we've just about an hour and 5 minutes or a bit longer. So firstly, I'd like to thank all of you for tonight. I'm pretty sure you've got lots more to say or not to say. You need to get on an E or whatever. But thank you, everybody. It's been a great conversation. It's a good insight into your work. You all did brilliantly. Not too many digital issues tonight. So hopefully, and just with regards to everybody else who's on here, we are recording these and we will be sharing them. We're checking through them, and they will be coming up online soon. So if you've missed anything or you want to watch them again, they'll be going on fidaworldwide.com. So thanks, everybody. Much appreciated. And usually we'd go for a beer now in the pub after a big talk, but that's not going to happen. It's just going to have to be a cup of tea, or as we're in or a glass of water. Maybe you might have a glass of wine. But thanks, everybody. It was a great night, and it was good to see you all. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you so much.
Good night.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
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 Thank you too. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.